Welcome to another session with TrialJoin. In this session, we'll be covering how to decline the wrong studies for your research site and how to accept the right trials. The right study is crucial for your site's long-term success. It'll help you build a better study pipeline. It'll get the respect of sponsors and CROs. So always remember it's okay to decline a study that's not a right fit. So let's start going over the importance of declining certain studies. There can be many damaging things for accepting the wrong studies. For example, you'll be spending your research site's resources unnecessarily. This can be your staff's time, your PI's time, your recruitment personnel's time. Again, you could be restraining the relationship you have with the sponsors and CROs. Even though it could be a long-term relationship, it takes only one study to jeopardize it. You'll probably not meet the recruitment goals. Other things will be the extra costs you'll have to take on for enrollment, which may be outside of the patient recruitment budget allocated for your site. You may have to tell the sponsor or CRO that you're postponing the trial because of recruitment efforts, and you're taking away time for other studies that you could be conducting and be successful at. And additionally, you could be locking your patients into a bad study, which will cause retention issues down the line, and then you won't be gaining profit, but instead you'll be losing money. So remember, there are a lot of damages that can happen for accepting the wrong study. Although on the other side of the coin, there are many benefits for accepting the right study. You'll gain additional income for your research site. You'll be expanding your PI's experience and growing their CV, improving your site success with sponsors and CROs. And remember, they always keep a catalog of all this information. They know which sites do well. And then that will go towards building trust with them and a lot of their admiration. Now let's go over when to decline a study. Well, when you're not able to recruit and retain patients into a study from your previous experience, that's when you know a study will initially be of issue. So if you think you can't recruit the patients or even keep them in the trial based on your past experience, that's going to be one warning sign. Remember, if you start going over your database and you just don't see enough patients for this trial, that's another issue. And then where you think you're going to have to rely on mainly promotion, advertising, and patient recruitment efforts outside of your database and your internal site efforts, that may not give you the type of results you want. So always be wary. It's always better to look at your database and then use additional third-party companies such as TrialJoin to help you recruit the extra leg of your patient requirements. Another thing to keep in mind is, do you have the required resources for this study? In order to conduct a study successfully, you must have the necessary resources such as the equipment, the staff, and the training of the staff, the PIs, the coordinators, and does your PI have the experience for these type of procedures? If your site doesn't have all this stuff, it may scare the sponsors away initially, so definitely keep all these things in your purview. After you evaluate the study and its protocol, and you see that you're going to have a very hard chance at obtaining a study because of some of the things that you lack, maybe the equipment, the experience, the PIs, and whatnot, it may be better to reject it off the bat instead of going through the time-consuming process of a feasibility analysis and then have the sponsor reject it eventually anyways. Also check to see if the study meets your site's standards. Is it being conducted in a field that's of interest of your research site? Does the study budget have enough for your site? And does it match the type of patients you have? If some of these criteria don't match up, definitely decline it. Now let's go over some tips of how to cleverly decline the study, because you definitely want to gracefully do it and not offend anyone. So here are some tips for clever declining of studies. First, you don't want to waste your time and effort and let the sponsor know that you're just not a good fit for it, but other protocols you might be a good fit for that, so definitely keep you in mind for those. It's just the protocol and the patient base you have don't fit up for this, so that way you can still work in the same therapeutic area. It's just this protocol is difficulty. Always get the protocol before you decline the study, because you don't want to decline a study based on a therapeutic area or different variables you just see on a superficial glance. And then always take into consideration how long a feasibility analysis takes. So if you know this study is going to be a dead end, don't waste your time filling it out. And then, of course, give the sponsors and CROs feedback. They always use this to adapt the protocol if they see it being too difficult for sites, and they'll obviously appreciate that you did that. And when you're not sure to accept or decline a study, consult with your staff and PI and get their opinion. They'll definitely be able to tell you off the bat if you should take it or not. Now let's go over the long-term goals of your research site and how to increase your study pipeline. Important long-term goal to have in mind is that you're looking to improve your study pipeline. Answering the questions that come in the next following slides will help you decide if to accept or decline a study is going to improve your study pipeline in the long term. Now let's start going over some of these questions. What are your site's therapeutic areas of expertise? So are you experienced in any CNS conditions, or are you more on internal medication? What are your PI's experience? What are their specialties? Are they only in psychiatric care? Are they endocrinologists? Definitely consider those things. What are the sources do you have for accessing patients and recruiting patients? Do you have only your internal database? Do you know how to use things such as online advertisements, TV advertisements, radio advertisements without taking on too much cost? And then what are your desires regarding participation in future trials? Do you want to use this as a stepping stone? And then will the study display your site's best qualities, or is it going to put you a foot back? And then will the sponsor CRO have more similar studies in the future? And then you can use it as a criteria to understand if you want to accept or decline the study. And then again, think about the therapeutic area of focus for the CRO as well as keeping in mind yours. And then has the CRO been awarded this type of study in the past, or have they not? Now let's go over how to enter new therapeutic areas. There are a lot of easy options for entering new therapeutic areas. You can go after phase 4 trials and studies that have easier recruitment and procedures, and registry studies and observational studies. There are a few red flags when entering new therapeutic areas. Are the number of sites interested in a study sort of low? That can be definitely a warning sign. And then, are the recruitment expectations impossible to meet for a study? Do they require certain types of procedures that you know patients are going to reject? And then another thing to look out for is what kind of equipment does a study require? Is it within your wheelhouse of stuff that you have, or do you have to purchase it or figure out other ways of obtaining it? One typical one are X-ray machineries that are required in a lot of studies, and it can be a choke point in screening patients. And then, does your site or PI have experience in the therapeutic area? Definitely keep in mind those things. Here's a checklist of when to decline certain studies. First look if you want to build more trust and credibility with the sponsor and CROs. That's major because you want to make sure that you're always pushing that forward. And if you've had a good relationship, you might be able to sustain a bad study with them. And are you trying to keep your resources allocated for better studies? Because you do only have limited staff and time, so maybe you want to only pick the best studies for your site and make it as profitable as possible for your site. And then, are you trying to become a center of excellence, of course, in a sense, for these therapeutic areas? This is another few things that you should look out for. Are you not going to be able to recruit the needed number of patients? And then again, we come back to the needed resources, and I like to reiterate this point a few times. And then, does the study match up to your site's standards? Are they the type of studies you like to take? And then, of course, gauge the chance of obtaining the study. In conclusion, research sites have to be very careful of the studies that they select, because it does mean a lot with their reputation with sponsors and CROs. And on top of that, you may sustain financial losses if you take the wrong study on and you spend significant time screening patients, which you only normally get reimbursed for by the sponsor. So definitely keep all these little factors that we covered in this video in your mind and before you take on a study. And if you ever have questions, you can always shoot us a quick email and we'll help you walk through the process. And accepting the right studies will build your study pipeline for the long term, so keep that in mind. And then again, we want to thank you for watching Trial Join's video, and if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email.